Hello there, beautiful. I see you made it live again. I did make it live again, and you're just hanging out here, which is the greatest thing you can do anyway. Let me turn that speaker off. I've just enjoyed some music before hopping live here. Yeah, today I want to talk about something that has been asked from quite a lot of you, actually. You know, I'm a mental health and mindfulness coach, and also I am a vegan activist, which means that I actively choose to engage in different types of activism. Now, when I say different types of activism, I want to make sure that you understand that vegan activism is not only about going onto the street, doing outreach and talking to people by handing out flyers or doing a cube of truth or something like that. Activism, it is a state of being. It is a state of communication. It is a way of engaging in communication and in your everyday life, wherever you are, wherever you go, whoever you talk to. Activism can become a part of that. I often call this concept or this theory elevated activism, which basically means that you are naturally advocating for the animals. And by naturally advocating for the animals, I don't mean that you're being pushy or you're being like an asshole about it and you're like pushing your message towards other people all the time. No, I basically mean that as a part of your being, it becomes a natural mechanism of yours to engage in conversations which often other people bring up. We know that as vegan activists, we know that a lot of people point out when we're vegan that we're vegan. A lot of people bring it up for us, right? And so I often observe how a lot of us get triggered or challenged or angry or frustrated when people do that, when they bring up the topic veganism. And becoming an elevated activist basically means that we are separating those triggers, our own emotions, and really becoming humble and loving and smooth in our communication so that we can talk about veganism without being, first of all, triggered, because when we're triggered, we often have the tendency to trigger our opposite, right? Let me turn on the air condition. I'm on Bali and it's hot. So what I want to share with you today are some foundational concepts that I've learned from being a coach in the fields of mindfulness, mental health, but I've also been coaching people in the fields of relationships. And all of those have one field or one area in common, which is communication. Communication, which is a key for us if we want to become clear in life, if we want to be able to connect with other people. We got to become okay, good, and better at communication, right? And don't worry, I'm not going to tell you you have to like study for a whole year to become an elevated activist. It's something that already is within you because you're a compassionate person. You live from compassion. If you're a vegan for the animals, your compassion or your sense of compassion is already refined. So the only thing that we need to do is we need to find a certain wording in order to bring that compassion to the table when we talk about veganism, and not bring blaming and shaming to the table when we talk about activism. Makes sense, right? Put in the comment, makes sense, if it does to you so far. Now, what I want to share with you in this video are some foundational coaching principles, some quite simple tools that I've learned from my coaching experience that you can implement into your activism or into your everyday conversations, okay? So take out your notebook, because this is important and this will change the course of your daily life. Because I know that in your daily life, if it's online or if it's offline, you're having these conversations. I know that there are these people that come out, that trigger you, that feel like, oh, now this, you know, like fucking shit objections again from non-vegans. I don't want to deal with them. I know that that's a part of your daily life and that comes up a lot for you, right? So here's the thing. The first thing that I learned and really had to start integrating when I became a coach and when I started embarking on this coaching journey was something that one of my past mentors said. She said, the best coaching session that you could ever provide someone, especially when it's a one-on-one coaching, is a session where you as the coach only ask questions and you let your coachee, your client, come up with all the solutions and all the answers themselves. So the power of asking the right questions is what we're talking about here. And this also applies to us as activists when we're engaged with somebody on the street or online, when we're being able, or we're just reminding ourselves constantly that it's not about the statements we make. It's not about the facts that we put out there. Because believe me, very often somebody is not open to hear your facts. They're not. And then you're just spreading your energy into the space, you're sharing your facts and wisdom, and they're not even open and receptive for it. So how can you make sure that they open up to receive facts, or to even find them within their minds? Because most people aren't that dumb, even if you're like, oh, every non-vegan is a dumb shit, they didn't get it yet. They're not dumb, they really aren't. They're just in the process of making all these realizations, same as you are in the process of making your realizations. Maybe not in the field of veganism and compassion anymore, because you're already vegan, but you're in your process, you're learning your things, right? So asking the right questions withholds is the wrong word. It holds so much power for you to tickle out their inner vegan, or their inner compassionate being, or their inner elevated state, their higher self, their higher version. That's what I'm doing as a coach when I have one-on-one coaching clients. I really ask the questions that make them receive a new perspective on life and pull out this new vision, this new perspective. Now, what are some of the ways that you can apply that? Because now when you go into a conversation, you might be like, oh shit, I have to ask questions. What questions do I ask? Okay? So here's some really easy questions that I use in my coaching as well as in my activism that you can use yourself. Take out your notebook again if you don't have it. One of the easiest questions you can ask is, what does that mean to you? How does that look like to you? So the what and the how. You can start your questions always with those two. They're amazing to build a sentence that holds the capacity for a powerful question. What and how? And the way you can shape these questions in a conversation, because you're not a coach like me, so you're not skilled and trained and, well, maybe you are, but maybe you're not in the space of coming up with these questions in the moment. So a way for you to come up with these questions, for example, is when somebody is talking to you, thanks for the group, my love. I already am in that group and I will share this video in that group. A really good way to do that is to reiterate. So if you're in a conversation and if somebody is talking to you and they're coming up with an objection, or they're coming up with a fact that doesn't make sense in the end, but they're just trying to pull stuff out of the air to justify why they're not vegan, let's say, for example, right? Because that's a very common thing people do. They're trying to justify themselves, although they know, oh, I'm actually realizing myself, I'm a little hypocrite over here. So how can we guide them through that process? We reiterate what they said. And the way you can do that is you can ask them, do I understand right what you're saying is, and then you just use the words they said before. Or you use the words they said before in your own terms. Let me make an example here. Pull an example out of the air. So if somebody says, for example, you're in a debate or in a conversation about veganism, and somebody says, yeah, the reason why I'm eating so much cheese still is because it's just a part of my upbringing, it's like a part of how I grew up, and I really like the taste, and like how I see it, it's a big tradition, I honor the tradition. If they say that, you can go back, create yourself some time and clarity by asking, so hold on, you're saying that for you, the reason why you're still eating cheese is because you honor the tradition of your home country, right? And then they're like, yeah, exactly. Okay. That creates in them the feeling, and not only the feeling, because you're actually listening to them. You're making sure and you're reassuring them that they're being heard. Okay? So you're not just being there planning your next answer in your mind. You're really being there with them. And that creates a whole different energy because they're like, oh, this person is listening to me. Right? They're not here to prove me wrong. They're here to listen to me. Great. They're opening up a bit more when they realize that. When they realize somebody is actually listening to them, they're opening up a bit more, becoming a bit more vulnerable. Now what's happening when they say something like in the example before, and you reiterate, you can say, actually, you know what, I can relate. I grew up in a country where cheese is also a big part of my dish. Like in my personal story, that is the case. I grew up in Switzerland. So I reiterate and I make sure that they can relate to me and I can relate to them because I can, and most of us can. Most of us weren't born vegan. We went through the same process as they are in right now. So let's make sure they can relate, or they know that we can relate. So we're creating unity instead of separation and fight. And that's the key point. You got to make sure that they understand that you're on the same page with them, that you're feeling the same feelings, and that you can understand where they're at, where they're coming from. That doesn't mean that you're going to be a bitch about it and tell them you're further down the road. No, you don't. You're simply going to make them understand that you know what it feels like, where they're coming from. And then you can take the conversation from there to ask another question. When you've made sure and you've put a little bit of your own story into this conversation, you're like, hey, I can really feel you actually, because I grew up in Switzerland and we had cheese all over the place. I mean, Switzerland is the country of milk and cheese, right? We have this big cheese tradition. And for me, it was actually the last thing that I've given up on. But for me, when I like realized all the impact or the negative impact or the cause that my choices have when I invest in cheese, when I just buy cheese once or twice a week, what kind of suffering that I actually invested. When I started to realize that, I really had to ask myself the question, what's more important there? My values or my tradition that I'm used to? That was something that I asked myself, right? And then you can see how they react, and a lot of them will be like, yeah, I can relate still, but like it's really hard for me to give up. And then you can take it to the next step. You can say, well, what needs to happen for you to like make the shift? Or how? You see what I did there? I said what as again? What needs to happen? What do you think? You put it on them. You make them think about their answers. You already know the answers, or you can kind of anticipate them, You're not 100% sure, but you can anticipate them. And that's how you lead the conversation in a way that they come up with the solutions themselves. How do you think we could resolve this problem? How could it look like how could your daily meals look like without cheese, but still the same factor of enjoying, knowing that you wouldn't contribute to that industry, right? How could your meals look like? How could your day look like? And then you let them cook for a minute. You let them, come up with their answers. If they're dumb as fuck, you can tell them how you do it. You can give them some insights. You can ask them before I could share some of my experience with you if you're open for that, Ask them for consent. Because again, you don't want to spill your wisdom if you know they're not open for it. Because then you're just wasting your energy. And we know where that ends up. That ends up in frustration, in anger, in being at home at night, thinking about that discussion, being like, holy fuck, that was bullshit. This person just really doesn't get it. That's not what we want. And we play a big role in how the outcome of these conversations are. So I think learning to understand the other person and to letting them know that you understand them, number one. Number two, asking the questions. Use how and use what as the start of a question, right? How do you think that could look like? What do you believe would change? How much or how important do you think it could be for the animals? Or what do you think about that? Just a simple question of what do you think about that, right? And then the last thing, the third thing is make sure that they know they're safe. You can relate. You understand where they're coming from. You're not here to judge them for where they are. Because if you're doing that, quit activism. We got to work on your inner judgment, because bringing that into activism just doesn't do the thing. It just doesn't. You're not here to judge people into becoming vegan. You're here to support them on that process. You're here to help them, to make them see the same way you see, and you learned to see. You discovered the big suffering, the big pain, right? So that's just a couple of things that I wanted to share with you today on how we can implement a coaching approach into our activism. And that also applies into online activism. So if you're seeing somebody being rude and a bitch in the comments of a post you made, they're going into a debate, you can implement a question. Implement a question, reiterate if you're not fully sure what they're talking about, or reiterate to let them know that you're actually really reading and listening what they're posting. Reiterate, do I understand you right? Wait, you're saying that? Do I get it right that your opinion is? And then hit a question. Bring a question. Let them do the math. Let them do the math. You don't do the math. You don't have to do the math for them anymore. You've done the math for yourself. You've figured out that veganism is the solution for you because you want to serve the animals in that way. The same way in my case. You've done the math. You don't have to do it for them anymore. Let them do it. Now, one last thing I want to share with you. When it comes to the point that you realize that a conversation just doesn't go into a golden thread direction, it just doesn't hit home for them. They are so stuck in their beliefs that they are not open to hear a new perspective. You have two options. You have option number one, to keep pushing, to keep trying, to keep reiterating and to keep asking. Or you have option number two, because you're not paid to work with them like that. You're not there because of, fighting. You're not there to fight. You're there to guide. You're there to share. You're there to inspire. You're there to make people see new things, create new perspectives. If you realize that it's not working, you can quit the conversation. You can say, thank you for your time. That's it. You can say, thank you for your time. I feel that this conversation we're not getting onto the same wavelength, so bless you and thanks for your time. Let's talk another time. Or thank you and bless you for your time, and have a great day. You can end the conversation at any time. You're not obligated to stay there and hang in a conversation that feels draining and feels frustrating. You're not there for that. You're there for the conversation with the person that has a bit of openness, already embodies a bit of compassion, and that is ready to take that to the next level. That's everything I wanted to share with you today. If you like this video, put in the comments, let me know what you liked about it. What is new for you? Share that with me as well. I'm always curious. It's social media. It's the social media. I'm not sitting here talking just into a screen. I know you're watching. I know you're watching the recording. So let's make it as social as we can. Leave some comments. Let me know how you like this. Leave some likes. Share it if you think this is really valuable information. Share it on your profile or in another Facebook group or wherever. I'd really appreciate that. And so I bet that's everybody who's watching this. My name is June Fuchs. I'm a mental health and mindfulness coach. I have different programs running. If you want to learn more about my work, I'll put in the comments, I want to know more, or I want to know more about you. If you want to know more about me and my work, I'm happy to share that with you in person. So put that in the comments. Mwah. Sending much love your way.